All right. Check. Okay, let's about to get started. Hit that like, share the show, everybody. Going live, all right. Oh, good Lord. That's right, Flappers tonight, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you're in the area, come on down. We moved the date, so. Okay. They're not a... Oh, yeah, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's good to see you again. I feel like I just saw you a couple minutes ago, but that's because I was live on Copeland's Corner with Tom Sawyer and, a Monday Warrior, and Kathy Ladman, who's fantastic and funny and a wonderful human being. So just talking politics and stuff. You can check out Copeland's Corner. I posted the link in my Blue Sky when we were live, and then they post a cool thing. Different. No, it's not today's Tom Sawyer. It's last year's Tom Sawyer. So Mike's too hot. Shit. Did it jump right in, grab the other? Oh, yeah. Look at it. Well, hold on. Check. You won. We all right? Mike is still too hot, lady. Do you hear that? Nope. Okay. Sorry, it's dusty back here. They wrote a book about Tom Sawyer. I've heard that. I read it in school, I think. Sorry, I bumped into the table there. So couple things. We got a lot to cover and very little time to do it. I got a show at 7:30, so I got to eat at some point. So, it's gonna be a tight show. So work with me. If I jump around, that's why. Okay. A Monday Warrior, mean pride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean. All right. I don't want to scare anybody's cat. So, it could be that I'm too excited. So there's a lot to look at. Not the least of which, chat room, who are wonderful and always hit the like, and who have all subscribed, of course, because that's in the chat. But if you're just watching and you're afraid to subscribe, I see you, I feel you. It's okay. It's good enough that you're here. I'm glad to have your eyeballs. Viewer hours work more than subscribership anyway these days, and I'm killing it. 15 to 20 million hours on one site alone. I'm on a lot. Watch time, yeah, it's very high. That means how many people have like spent their time watching it as opposed to how much time I've actually put on. It's pretty good. Anyway, so we could look at the puppetry of the penis version of Bobby, and of course Benny Johnson is excited that Trump is going to nuke the world, and of course Ben Shapiro thinks that, and I quote, Candace Owens is evil. And then but we're gonna start with hold on, and we're also gonna look at JD Vance, the new king of fraud. King of fraud. All right, but before, I thought we'd do something on the positive tip. Yes, where we look at Abigail Spanberger, who did the Democratic response to Trump's SOTU. It's not that long, and obviously I probably won't have a ton of notes, so we'll get through it. But I think you should see it.
Good evening and welcome to historic Williamsburg. We are gathered here in the chambers of the House of Burgesses. In 1705, the people of the Virginia colony gathered here to take on the extraordinary task of governing themselves. Before there was a Declaration of Independence,
they put buckles on their hats so they wouldn't fly off at how extraordinary, oh my God, a new system of government. Poing. I'm messing around.
Constitution or a Bill of Rights, there were people in this room. The people who served here ultimately dreamed of what a new nation, unlike anything the world had ever seen, could be. The United States was founded on the idea that ordinary people could reject the unacceptable excesses of poor leadership, band together to demand better of their government, and create a nation that would be an example for the world. And this year, as we celebrate 250 years since America declared our independence from tyranny, I can think of no better place to speak to you as we reflect on the current state of our union.
By the way, if this is very confusing and seemingly even presidential or just professional, this is what political speeches used to look like when the purpose of them was to make cohesive sense.
Tonight, as we watched our nation's lawmakers gather for a joint session of Congress, we did not hear the truth from our president. So let's speak plainly and
because the day ended in Y.
And let me ask you, the American people watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family?
No.
Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad?
No.
Is the president working for you?
Oh, definitely
not. As
I
campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia, and I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country. Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have.
Oh yeah. And by the way, the math she's using is specifically with the tariffs is particularly important because remember how Trump said Biden raised everybody's cost $3,000 and we've lowered them $1,400, right? Which obviously leaves $1,600 unaccounted for. But he's also added $1,700 to that cost. So he's effectively raised the cost of life in America by $3,100 at minimum by their own math. So
farmers have suffered.
Oh, and also any of the so-called left online accounts that were like complaining that Abigail Spanberger was doing this, I would like to say thank you. for pointing out something wonderful about the Democratic Party that you cannot refute, and that is that we're so diverse. You can complain about a woman who's speaking. Yeah, we've got women in power that we're proud of that are acting decently in public and creating working on policies that actually help people, and you have the every bit of the right to bitch about that. Congratulations again, like the maggots, you played yourself.
Losing entire markets. Everyday Americans are paying the price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already been done. Meanwhile, the president is planning for new tariffs, another massive tax hike on you and your family. And Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. They're making your life harder. They're making your life more expensive. They're even making it more difficult to see a doctor. Rural health clinics in Virginia and across the country are already closing their doors thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, championed by the president and Republicans in Congress. And tonight, the president celebrated this law.
Sorry, Sam Cedars YouTube video title, Dem Party picks CIA agent for Trump SOTU response. Jesus fucking Christ. So Sam and those guys are just on Team TYT this election cycle? Brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
The one threatening rural hospitals.
By the way, Sam thinks I'm an asshole. And he's right. To people like him. I guess an asshole would be someone who is has bullish disregard for the way that you think you should be treated. That's usually the definition of an asshole, because it's a movable goal post. And in Sam Cedars' case, yeah. I'm happy that he considers me an asshole.
Stripping healthcare from
Because that's what happens when you actually give a shit. Like, really. Not, again, not this, burn it all down, said from the warm side of a bay window.
Of Americans and driving up costs in energy and housing, all while cutting food programs for hungry kids. But here in Virginia, I am working with our state legislature to lower costs and make the Commonwealth more affordable. And it's not just me. Democrats across the country are laser focused on affordability in our nation's capital and in state capitals and communities across America.
Look, she used the word affordability as a word of function, as a totem of purpose.
In the most innovative and exceptional nation in the history of the world, Americans deserve to know that their leaders are focused on addressing the problems that keep them up at night. Problems that dictate where you live, whether you can afford to start a business or whether you have to skip a prescription in order to buy groceries. So I'll ask again, is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no. I grew up in a house of service. My mother was a nurse and my father was a career law enforcement officer. I began my career by...
My mom was a nurse and my dad was an architect and a luthier. So, close.
Following in my father's footsteps as a federal agent working money laundering and narcotics cases. I work side by side with local and state police to keep our community safe and to uphold and enforce the law. Law enforcement officers across the country know that it is a unique responsibility to do the serious work of investigating crimes, comforting victims, and making arrests. It's about building trust, and that requires an abiding sense of duty and commitment to community. And yet, our president has sent poorly trained federal agents into our cities, where they have arrested and detained American citizens and people who aspire to be Americans. And they have done it without a warrant. They have ripped nursing mothers away from their babies. They have sent children, a little boy in a blue bunny hat, children to far-off detention centers, and they have killed American citizens in our streets.
Now, this is the reason why Sam Cedar doesn't like her, or why sort of the left-leaning ones don't like her. A couple reasons. One is I'm sure they'll just tack on her law enforcement background and just that's an automatic no-go or something. But that's a cheap way of saying that they're worried that she's in many ways that Spamberger is the second coming of Hillary Clinton, meaning that she's an effective woman who would be capable of being president one day. She is working her way up through the the executive pipeline, showing that she can be a governor, for example, and that she might one day be a runner for that office. And unfortunately for them, she's a woman, and she's not 100% bought in on whatever the all or nothing kind of political attitude that they have, and they're worried that people will vote for her not just not because she's a woman, but because she is a woman, and so this is the what I would call the anti-DEI push amongst the far left. If you'll notice who they end up in a lot of cases fighting for in office when it comes to high office, lower offices they don't care. It's a lot of performative support of minorities. When it gets to high office, nah. They tend to go with old white guy just as much as anybody else does.
And they have done it all with their faces masked from accountability. Every minute spent sowing fear is a minute not spent investigating murders, crimes against children, or the criminals defrauding seniors of their life savings. Our president told us tonight that we are safer.
Hal chat, Destiny's chat, every single chat I've been in today is about 100. They're all fine. Must be the ones you're on. It's a very small carve out, but but again, they move a section of voters, or at least they have in the past. I don't know how much impact they're ultimately going to have this time around because the circumstances are so strong, but believe me, they're going to try. TYT and Minority Report are going to both push for that. Their job is to mute the Democratic vote. It is not criticism of the current leadership or the Republican Party or the extraordinary nature of the stuff that the Republicans are doing. It's them. Their whole job is to convince you that there's a coin flip between Democrats and Republicans, no matter how extreme Trump acts.
These agents arrest mothers and detain children.
So I would just say, be aware going into this cycle. Keep an eye out for that kind of language. You'll see a bunch of this like false equivalency and lesser of two evils bullshit the closer we get to the actual election, because that's the side of the bread their butter is on. If everything worked out and Democrats were running things again and we had a competent government, I would have other shit to do. I can act, I can sing, I can write, I can produce things, I can make movies and short films and stuff like that on my fucking own now, thanks to like the technology that's available to me. Those guys don't have another job. Unless there's chaos, they got nothing. Like, I can do political comedy, but you guys know, as I will tonight, that I don't have to do political comedy to be funny. And I don't have to do it to garner an audience. They do. So beware of people who's like have single note jobs. It's why most people are rightly concerned about the 24-hour news cycle, because small stories have to be blown up into enormity, or you have to be led around by your nose to try and stay through the next break so they can sell some toilet paper and some Ozempic. But people with other skills, I would say it's why women are more nervous around a shy, like overly, I don't know, pretentiously good guy, as opposed to somebody who's confident. Because at least a confident guy, you're like, this guy has options. He's not going to try and take me against my will. But this one guy who's desperate seems a little stalkerish. That's what it is, because he doesn't have another game. That's the same thing they're up to. If that makes sense. It's a weird analogy, but I think it stands.
About that. Our broken immigration system is something to be fixed, not an excuse for unaccountable agents to terrorize our communities. After working in law enforcement, I continued my career of service as a CIA officer, working undercover to protect the United States and our allies from global threats, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and the aggression of adversarial nations around the globe. But as the president spoke of his perceived successes tonight, he continues to cede economic power and technological strength to Russia, bow down to China, bow down to a Russian dictator, and make plans for war with Iran. Here's the truth. Over the last year, through DOGE, mass firings, and the appointment of deeply unserious people to our nation's most serious positions, our president has endangered the long and storied history of the United States of America being a force for good. So I'll ask again, is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at home and abroad? We all know the answer is no. In his speech tonight, the president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated, and he distracted. And he offered no real solutions to our nation's pressing challenges, so many of which he is actively making worse. He tries to divide.
Yes, basically everything.
He tries to enrage us, to pit us against one another, neighbor against neighbor. And sometimes he succeeds. And so you have to ask, who benefits from his rhetoric, his policies, his actions, the short list of laws he's pushed through this Republican Congress? Somebody must be benefiting. He's enriching himself, his family, his friends. The scale of the corruption is unprecedented. There's the cover-up of the Epstein files, the crypto scams, cozying up to foreign princes for airplanes and billionaires for ballrooms, putting his name and face on buildings all over our nation's capital.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's always been a reason why they don't name a street after you until you've been dead for a while. And usually it's because of Epstein kind of stuff. Like, people want time to pass after you've been dead, because like when a famous person or a well-known politician or somebody dies, everybody's really nice for a little while. But if they have a scandal that was buried, over the next decade or so, shit starts to bubble up and everybody goes, well, actually. And it's during the well, actually period that people can go, well, we were going to name the airport after him, but probably not. It doesn't always work out that way. I'm sure there are people with, plenty of sketchy backgrounds that have shit named after them. But this is why Trump wants to name the stuff after himself while he's here, because he doesn't think he's going to be here much longer.
Is not what our
And he also doesn't care about anything that happens after he's dead, which is another reason why he shouldn't have ever been president. I mean, if anything, one of the biggest qualifications that you should have for as to be president of the United States is that you hope you set things in motion that will better the country long after you are gone. He doesn't give a shit.
Envisioned not by a long shot. So I'll ask again, is the president working for you? We all know the answer is no. But here's the special thing about America. On our 250th anniversary, we know better than any nation what is possible when ordinary citizens, like those who once dreamed right here in this room, reject the unacceptable and demand more of their government. We see it in the determination of students organizing school walkouts all across the country, whose voices are becoming so powerful that the governor of Texas seeks to silence them. We see it in the bravery of Americans in Minnesota standing up for their communities, from peacefully protesting in sub-zero temperatures to carpooling children to school so that their immigrant parents are not ripped away from them in the parking lot.
And yes, I am absolutely doing flappers tonight, Chris. So, like, people in the chat room, don't worry. I'm just doing a whole show now because fuck it.
As a mother
so much to cover
of 3 school-age daughters, I am inspired by their bravery, but I am sickened that it is necessary. And Americans across the country are taking action. They are going to the ballot box to reject this chaos. With their votes, they are writing a new story, a more hopeful story. In November, I won my election by 15 points. and we won 13 new seats in our state legislature. Because voters decided they wanted something different. Our campaign earned votes from Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everyone in between, because they knew as citizens they could demand more, that they could vote for what they believe matters, and that they didn't need to be constrained by a party or political affiliation.
She got that little speech shuffle.
This is happening across the country. New Jersey elected Mikey Sherrill as governor in a double-digit victory. Democrats flipped state legislative seats in places like Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, and Texas. The list goes on and on. Ordinary Americans are stepping up to run in the spirit of our forefathers. They are running to demand more and to do more for their neighbors and communities. I know the story well. I first ran for office in 2018 alongside dozens of other
Nina says she's fresh off the campaign trail and still has it. Absolutely.
Democrats who did the seemingly impossible, flipping 41 seats in Congress. In my case, I was the first Democrat elected in 50 years, swinging our district 17 points. Those who are stepping up now to run will win in November because Americans, you at home, know you can demand more and that we are working to lower costs. We are working to keep our communities and our country safe, and we are working for you. In his farewell address, George Washington warned us about the possibility of, quote, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men rising to power.
Well, we owe him an apology, I think.
He also encouraged us, all Americans, to unite in a common cause, to move this nation forward. That is our charge once more, and that is what we are seeing across the country. It is deeply American and patriotic to do so, and it is how we ensure that the state of our union remains strong, not just this year, but for the next 250 years as well, because we, the people, have the power to make change, the power to stand up for what is right, the power to demand more of our nation. May God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia, and may God bless the United States of America.
Pretty great, pretty straightforward, really professional. It's funny, like, reacting to something normal. Like, wow, that was like stuff supposed to work. You know what I mean? And I think one of the things that Trump misses that that people take for granted a lot of times and don't recognize is that there is a level of professionalism that exists in big and small businesses across the country, in school organizations and stuff, the ones you don't hear about, that are much more like that than what Trump does. And that people that are like Trump, when they show up in those situations, are rejected unless it's the most slapdash area or organization. And so a lot of people just simply look for authority and in professionalism. And I think there's been a bit of what I would call the yawling of politics that like where I think Hillary and others were accused of like code switching, which is now more than ever 100% unnecessary. That being authentic, because as a politician even, means being professional. That doesn't mean you're not a regular human being because you talk professionally and you organize your thoughts, because you're on the job. You're not a speech or even a rally, for whatever Trump wants you to think, which is really just a performative act by him. For an actual representative politician, someone who works in government or seeks to work in government to represent the public in their needs and wants, their job is to speak professionally. Their job is to iterate and reiterate ideas that are easily comprehended by the broadest members of their populace, not kowtow to a specific attitude or sales and show up, just because you're eating a fucking flapjacks or street corn or something at a place that that's part of like being yourself. But when you're actually giving a speech, when you're actually speaking at a rally and speaking back and forth, a level of professionalism should be something worth respecting. It should be something worth working in. And I think every politician worth their stuff, specifically, this would be my message to Democrats, is don't talk down to the public. That's what Trump does. Now, some of them are like when you talk down to maggots, they go, "He's talking just like us." The problem with that is that your words matter, and then you act like your words don't matter, and they take half of it at, it's like, if they like what you're saying, he's speaking the law. If they don't like what you're saying, he's just shooting the shit. And that's been a safety out. A politician or a law enforcement officer or an officer of the court, someone in a serious position, and I would argue that preachers and ministers should maintain this level as well, is an like order of professional above personal discourse, and you have to own that and respect it. And I think there's going to be a new respect for that. Now, I'm a sassy individual, so when I run, when am I gonna announce? Probably after the midterms. I'm gonna have to like figure out how I'm gonna get signatures on my own, but to run as a Democrat. And I think primarily I'm going to focus first on red states gathering, and we'll work that out eventually. I might be able to get an AI built that just does it. How we can't wait that long to start raising money. Seriously, I know. Believe me, I don't think it'll be about money by that time, Water Goddess. Honest to God, like we're entering a sort of AI agent era where it won't matter. This will be a lot more like Ukraine against Russia than it is, in like a money raising campaign of the late 80s, 90s. So, anyways, by like, I mean, I've seen national races, they cost money. Yes, I know that. I've seen them as well. And again, past is not prologue necessarily in all these situations. I'm sure that will be a part of it. But believe me, if Marianne Williamson can get on the debate stage, it didn't cost that much. So there you go. Thank you, Jennifer. So, but yeah. So I do think there is there should be a willingness to push back on this idea of sort of colloquial suck up. You mean you're going to use drones in a matter of speaking? And there's an analogy to it. No, I totally get it, Water Goddess. I'm not saying you are. I'm telling you, I'm just not blowing it off. Believe me, it will be a combination of the two. We will meet in the middle on how this will have to work out. But yeah, so let's jump into some of the other stuff, because right after, if you'll recall, last night, um, Trump announced that J.D. Vance, and seen here with Dr. Oz, is going to be the fraud czar. And since he's got a fake name and allegedly a beard and a bunch of other BS in his background, maybe he's the perfect guy, set a thief to catch a thief. But this is his announcement of how they're going to do this fraud stuff. And I don't have the nut warning thing like I would have for Trump, for the amount of charisma, the Riz that is just going to blow off the screen. Kapow! Right out of the face of J.D. Vance. You're like, Hal, I don't know that I can take this much excitement, before the sun goes down. But here we go.
So let me say a couple things about what we're announcing today, and then I'm going
to... At CMS,
hold on. Why is he jumping ahead? I think he hands... how long is this thing? Does he answer questions? They go back and forth. Okay, they go back. Okay, they reset it. That's why. They reset the recording since I stacked it. So, give me 1 second. Bink.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So let me say a couple things about what we're announcing today, and then I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Oz, and then we are going to take a few questions. So as a lot of you know, there are way too many Americans who are being defrauded by very bad actors in our society.
Well, technically speaking, when you're talking about federal tax dollars, every American is being defrauded if there's fraud going on. The question is, does it elevate to the point of being a crisis, or specific to this require this kind of breakout, or indeed is the state handling it by arresting the people involved, period, which they have already.
People who take the goodwill and the trust of the American taxpayer and they decide to use it against us.
Oh, you mean like Trump? Sure.
Decide to make themselves rich instead of allowing these programs that are set up to make it easier for people to take care of their families, to make it easier for autistic kids to get the after-school services they need, to make it easier for people to get the health care that they need. And
well, especially in areas where the autistic kids that were allegedly getting the funds don't exist. So if anything, this is an action of overfunding around the pandemic, but we'll get there later.
we're going to start very aggressively in the administration.
I don't remember who was president when the pandemic started and signed most of the bills that allowed for the first payments to go out and support. Does anybody? Did that person care about how the stock market would work out that year, or did he just don't give a shit? We got to work on what's best for the American people. I can't remember.
Down on the people and the organizations that are defrauding Americans. So we're announcing today that we have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota,
which, by the way, is future money that they will allocate, because the money, like I want to say for like the first fiscal half of the year, has already been put in place. This is a bluff. By the way, this is, obviously outrageous and grotesque, but it's also a bluff. It's not going to amount to a hill of beans, just for the record.
It takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money. Now, what is this going to mean? What this means is that, first of all, the providers on the ground in Minnesota have actually already been paid. The state has paid those providers the money. What we're doing is we are stopping the federal payments that will go to the state government until the state government takes its obligations seriously.
Which, what's the metric for that?
Stop the fraud that's being perpetrated against the American taxpayer. There are a few different ways that we're doing that. There are a few different affirmative actions that we're taking today.
Wait, you're using affirmative action?
Dr. Oz is going to talk about those.
Dr. Oz is going to talk about affirmative action?
Let me talk a little bit
after he makes a hangina in front of his crotch, which is, I think, either a sign that you're part of the Bohemian Grove or you're just awkward.
Spirit of this and why we're doing it. So number one of the examples of fraud that we've seen in Minnesota that we verified that is just awful is that
sorry, whether it's fraud or not is the part you verify. The awful part, I guess, is a matter of opinion.
Program that existed to ensure that autistic children had access to some after-school services has made a number of people rich, not by providing services to needy children, but by allowing fraudsters to take money that ought by right go to American citizens and to American families, and to set up sham businesses, set up sham clients, set up people who are not even autistic but claim to be autistic in order that they benefit from the money that's out there. Now, what does that mean? Number one, it means that a lot of people are getting rich off the generosity of American taxpayers, but more fundamentally and more importantly than that, it means that there are kids in Minnesota who deserve these services, who need these services, and they're not going to those kids, they're going to fraudsters in Minneapolis.
Yeah, not anymore. And asshole, congratulations, you're already good at your job. You're so effective that multiple individuals have been charged, and at least one has pled guilty in connection with a large-scale autism fraud scheme in Minnesota. The scheme allegedly defrauded a publicly funded state program of millions of dollars. The program targeted early intensive developmental and behavioral intervention. It was the EIDBI program, a Minnesota healthcare program for people under the age of 21 with autism spectrum disorder. Primary defendants Asha Farhan Hassan, owner of Smart Therapy LLC, was the first person charged in the scheme, pled guilty to one count of wire fraud. She admitted her role in a $14 million Medicaid scheme and is also separated in the separate Feeding Our Future fraud. She's required to pay nearly $16 million in restitution. Abdinajib Hassan Yusuf, president and CEO of Star Autism Center LLC, has been charged with one count of wire fraud in connection with obtaining more than $6 million in those funds. The scheme mechanics. The fraud involves submitting millions of dollars worth of false claims for Medicare reimbursement, employing unqualified individuals, often young relatives with no formal training, as behavioral technicians, recruiting children in the centers, in some cases working to get children to falsely qualify for autism services, paying cash kickbacks to parents who enroll their children with higher payments for higher authorized services, billing for services that were never provided and fraudulently inflated, as all Medicare and Medicaid fraud happens. All healthcare fraud, insurance fraud happens this way. Connections to other scandals. Federal prosecutors have indicated that the autism fraud is linked to another widespread fraud scheme, schemes in Minnesota, including the massive Feeding Our Future child nutrition program fraud and housing stabilization services fraud. The investigators are ongoing by multiple federal agencies, including FBI, IRS, and Department of Health and Human Services, and Office of the Inspector General. The total potential fraud across various Minnesota Medicaid programs is estimated to be billions of dollars. Trump administration announced a temporary halt to some. That's what happened today. Okay, 6 additional defendants. We're charging 6 additional defendants have been charged federally with participating in schemes defrauding the government. The state brought charges first, and then the feds picked them up. This would be the Hassan Yusuf, the 27-year-old, who's charged with by federal information on one count of wire fraud. This is the primary thing, and then they'll go after them. The point is that the people involved in this have been arrested because it's a crime. It's always been a crime. It will continue to be a crime no matter who does it. And like this billions of dollars versus $17 billion, $21 billion, it might be as much as the entire budget of Medicaid in Minnesota is what they're saying. Is just a farce. The point is, it's already happening. Like and if they're going to look more into it, the investigations are already happening. What they're going to do is put him in a position to take claim for, or to claim that, that this new fraud czar, whatever board that they'll put together, gets credit for the investigations that are current and ongoing that have already been happening.
Unacceptable, and that's the sort of thing that we're cutting off with this action today. Let me make one final point about the spirit of this. You know, one of the things I love about our country is that we're a generous country. We're a generous people. We take care of our fellow citizens who can't afford medical care because they're down on their luck. We take care of...
Yeah, not if Mike Lee had his choice, and certainly not Republicans. The only reason you're doing that is because red states rely on it more than blue states do.
Who can't...
Per capita, whatever per capita means.
Or to put food on the table, even though they work hard and play by the rules. We recognize that we're all in this together, and part of the reason why we have Medicaid, or part of the reason why we have food stamps, part of the reason why we have these programs, is we want to make sure that kids who grew up in families not all that different from the family that I grew up in, that they have access.
Yeah, dude, you're not even using your real name.
Basic necessities.
I'm going to assume your backstory is bullshit until such time as that other proof is given. If anybody should be dogged around by a birth certificate and backstory claim, it's this dude.
Food, medical care, after-school services when their family needs them, but they're unable to pay. What's happening in Minneapolis, in California, in a number of states all across our country,
mostly red,
is that the generosity and the good hearts of our fellow Americans are being taken advantage of. We're taking that social contract that says that our American citizens, we take care of one another, and we're allowing a few...
They're like, there's a note in the teleprompter that says, try to have emotion about this. Make gesture of hand.
Bad actors to get rich off that generosity of spirit instead of providing the services to the kids who need it. This is disgraceful.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. It's that we put up with some of the bad actors because the kids who need it are so important, and it's so easy for people to get disenfranchised and give up on the services that should be available to them if the reins are too tight. So they loosen them up, and there's a give and take between the loosening and the tightening all the time. And anytime there's a gap between those two things, bad actors can slip in and steal money from this. And the question is, what's it like in our legal system? It's better that 12 guilty people go free than one innocent man go to jail. The same thing is sort of true about like it's better to have a certain amount of fraud than have one kid go hungry.
It has happened for too long. Far too many people have gotten rich by taking what is the best of the American spirit and getting rich off of it instead of providing services to kids.
But enough about Eric Trump.
That is stopping today. We're taking a whole of government approach in the Trump administration to take this fraud seriously. What Mehmet Oz and his team at CMS have done is really remarkable, and it's just the first step of our efforts. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Mehmet to say a few words about what he's doing, what his team has uncovered, and what they're accomplishing with this new action. Dr. Oz.
Wait, so I'm going to slap the table and I'm going to slap you back so I can seem like the boss in this situation instead of both of us have been sent to another room to do a press conference so that Trump can look like he's doing something while he naps or gets his IV.
President, I appreciate the leadership on this.
There hasn't been any yet, stupid. He just got appointed to this.
That his commitment, the Vice President's commitment to rooting out this fraud is going to make a massive difference in preserving and protecting our nation's public health programs. It's going to
Sorry, in the Trump administration, until the vice president gave a shit, this wasn't a priority.
Patience. I want to thank President Trump for pushing all of us to make sure we protect our most vulnerable Americans, the ones that JD mentioned, the ones he grew up with, the ones all of us know in our lives. It also protects taxpayers from attacks on our healthcare system. Secretary Kennedy has spearheaded these efforts, and thanks to his leadership, I'm proud to announce
he'd be here, but he's snorting coke off of a toilet seat right now.
The largest fraud initiative, anti-fraud effort of its kind in CMS history. Now, why is this action necessary?
Because Pam Bondi's too busy blacking out Trump's name in the Epstein files to do this job, so you're having to move it over to your organization and set up an entirely different law enforcement adjunct that will carry this out.
In the State of the Union address, the President spoke about the affordability issues that we have improved dramatically in this administration.
Nope.
Put some numbers on.
No, you haven't.
The average family puts about $27,000 in the health care a year. They only pay $7,000 themselves, which is a lot, but there's an extra $20,000 invested for them. This is not a reasonable amount of money to spend. We have got to bend that curve downwards. It's unpredictable as well when you have to make these expenses, and the fraud that we're experiencing in America is making this already dangerous problem much worse. So we're going to fix these issues. The President.
Sorry. So his argument is that the average American American family puts $27,000 towards health care, and I'm assuming this is from everything from skin knees to cancer. Obviously it's an uneven distribution, and that the average American has about on average who has insurance or is poor enough to get Medicaid or Medicare to pick up the tab, or age-wise perhaps has Medicare Part D or something like that picks up some of the slack. That out of pocket they got about $7,000. And there's about 20,000 in there, and that 20,000 is the government's part. And what they want to do is either cut you off from that as a way of lowering that cost, or bully it out of existence by claiming fraud, I suppose, and therefore fix the hole in the deficit that Trump is blowing with his tax cuts by limiting people's health care, by lowering what the government spends in that direction, or insurance, I guess, does like private insurance somehow, which is part of his giveaway to the pharmaceutical companies and the healthcare companies.
Last night,
the insurance
spoke about the need for price transparency. That's going to help by making people more aware of what they're paying. It's
gonna. I thought that was already in place last term.
Going to help us at CMS figure out what you should be paying and identifying.
Sorry, you don't know right now? Hold on. Whoops. Yeah, this is the hospital price transparency rule from 2021. Um, is the transparency and coverage rule in 2022. I don't remember who was president in those years. Anybody remember? And the requirements content information must include gross charges, payer specific negotiated rates, and discounted cash prices. The CMS actually is in charge of the compliance on those rules. Let's see. And then I guess let's the I don't know. Like he just layered over top of it. Like in 2025, they put in this thing in, I guess, in the big BS bill. Let's see, health affairs. Yeah, like it came into yeah. Here, price transparency. This is the National Library of Medicine. Okay, that's their abstract on it. Yeah, so they passed in 20 and 21, or sorry, 21 and 22. What do you mean gonna?
To that note, the president announced last night that he's.
By the way, in our current family situation where we're having to deal with a lot of medical billing, they break it down. They go through the whole fucking thing, like every time. Like, here's the list. Here's what everything's going to cost. These are your options for paying for it versus, what your insurance will or won't cover. We'll ask insurance to cover. If they don't, then there are these other options, especially in bigger treatments. I guess what they're talking about is if you go in for a broken arm, you get a price list of, just tape it up is what this is sort of like. You can choose actually get it treated, or you can choose from our gangrene, leeching, and frontier medicine list.
Our vice president to lead the war on healthcare fraud, a wise choice. Your passion for this will make a huge difference. This is not about the money by itself. This is about people's lives and our culture, our shared values that have allowed these beautiful programs, Medicare and Medicaid, to survive brilliantly for 60 years.
Brilliantly? Mike Lee is literally trying to get Trump to scuttle them.
We believe, listen carefully, we are spending $300 billion a year in healthcare in this country for fraudulent, abusive, or wasteful purposes.
Okay, those are three different first of all, what the fuck does abusive mean? Sorry. Are people writing off their trip to the dominatrix? I could pay a shrink and tell her my problems, or I could hire a woman to kick me in the balls and I feel just as good after the session. Because once the pain stops, it's amazing how much less stress I feel. Abusive? That sounds corporate. That doesn't sound like, or that sounds like people that you don't think they deserve the treatments that they're getting. So why are you back here again? Why are you taking advantage of the system? Maybe that's what they mean. And fraud's a very easy one. You don't need the care, and you're billing for it anyways. You're faking being ill. You're faking having patients, that kind of stuff. What were the third?
A year in healthcare in this country for fraudulent, abusive, or wasteful purposes.
Okay, and then wasteful is bureaucratic. Don't even get me started. You know the deep state you bitch about all the fucking time? Okay, that's who handles the wasteful part. That's what bureaucrats famously have always done. We don't have the budget for that. We're not going to do it. Tightening that up makes it harder for people to get healthcare that when they need it the most at the worst time. But it's a trade-off. You can tighten those reins, but you're going to limit who gets care. And that's the difficulty of governance. That's why it takes competent people to run it, because you want to trust the judgment of the people in charge instead of this waste, fraud, and abuse is just a fucking blather term. It's like dealing with homelessness by talking about homeless people like they're a fucking tribe, when there are varying degrees of homelessness and you can't treat them with broad brush. You can't treat the mentally ill with the same way you would treat somebody who fell through the cracks because a factory closed down and they're on the street because they lost their job through no fault of their own. Those are both homeless people, but you can't solve them the same way. and you can't. It's saying waste, fraud, abuse is like this fucking like this. It's like they're painting over the problem. It's like when you're moving out of an apartment and you have holes in the walls from poster tax and you fill them with toothpaste. That's what everybody tells you to do. Like if you can't, I don't know why you can't afford spackle, but one of the ways you can cover is put toothpaste in there, and by the time they realize the hole's still there, you're gone. That kind of stupid trick. That's what this is.
$300 billion. Let's put that in perspective.
Okay, I'll put that in perspective. We have a $27 trillion yearly economy. Let me say that again. The United States has a $27 trillion economy. $5 trillion worth of transactions go through Goldman Sachs servers every night.
If we could reduce fraud by 5%, which is that $300 billion, we would take the trust fund that's going to take care of all of us as we get older, and we would allow it not to expire in 5 to 6 years. We would double its life expectancy.
Right. By the way, your assumption about the 300 billion in fraud, waste, and abuse, by the way, and your default for the word fraud to cover all of it gives its idea. If we just arrest 5% of the bad guys, we'll extend the like how long the Social Security safety net extend. Like what you need to do is show me that the $300 billion number actually exists and isn't just you not believing that certain people deserve the care they're getting. That you want to kick people. It's like Trump, like we got people off food stamps. You kicked people off food stamps. That's not the same thing as getting them off food stamps. Getting them off food stamp means they've got a job and a reasonable rent scheme and utilities covered and enough money left over to have a fucking life, so they're above the poverty line by a measurable distance and they're not in danger of always falling back. That would get people off of food stamps. Kicking them off is different.
That's massively important if you're going to trust.
Also, by the way, his number of kicking people off of food stamps has a lot more to do with like just sunsetting programs that started during COVID that naturally had a sunset anyways, and those people weren't collecting those food stamps. They had stopped a long time ago because it was just about COVID. So the numbers are false regardless because they sunsetted this year or late last year.
To be there for you. You deserve that social safety net. It's there. It's created. We're not going to let fraudsters steal it from you. The stellar CMS team, I want to call them out. Kim Brandt, who's videoing me over there. Dan Brillman, Capri Snap, Steph Carlton have worked tirelessly to put this together. They've been...
Sorry, your staff that's putting this whole thing together is also running the camera for this event. So this is all just media is what you're saying. This is... like they're not, you didn't put together an investigative body, you put together a sales force.
Criminals all year long. I know as well what it's like. I visited all these areas, personally witnessed what it's like to see something you know is wrong and wonder why no one tried to fix it. It's infuriating. The Vice President described very accurately exactly what you see on the ground. These scoundrels, that's what they are, who rob our federal and state health programs, have decided it is worth the risk. I'm going to make a proposition to you. If you commit crime on Medicare or Medicaid in America and you steal, let's say, a couple $1 million, your jail sentence, first-time offender, maybe a year. For a lot of folks, that's a good deal. We have to take these crimes seriously and treat them as seriously as if they were bank robberies because they're more dangerous than bank robberies. People get hurt during them.
People often get hurt during bank robberies, I've heard. I mean, Heat's an amazing film. I don't think they all turn out that way.
Share some of these horrible stories. The Vice President started highlighting autism. Let's get into the details of what's really going on in Minnesota. These are real cases from our group at CMS. These are adjudicated numbers. There's a fraud scheme in Minnesota where criminals, soon to be criminals, pay moms $1,000 roughly in order to enroll their children as being autistic, falsely, dishonestly claiming their children are autistic.
Yeah, we know people have already been arrested. There's already an investigation in place.
Bill Medicaid, this has already happened, millions of dollars for services that were never rendered, never delivered by a qualified staff member. These schemes disproportionately involve immigrant communities. They're insulated, they're able to organize efforts, and sometimes they don't understand what's going on. And it ultimately diverts resources away from kids who truly have autism. Because if every kid in the neighborhood...
Sorry. So the fraudsters abuse the other people. So is that the abuse that they abuse people in their own communities who are can't get food aid some other way? So they create these schemes to get food to them. Now you're making me sympathetic that the fraud was actually a way of getting aid to people that had been cut off from it by the Trump administration in the first term around COVID because they weren't citizens but they were kind of stuck here in this, and certainly their home country was just in as much dire straits as anywhere else. So it's not like they could bug off back home, but they couldn't show up and get the help that American citizens or naturalized citizens or even people who were stuck here while they were visiting and airplanes were shut down. So what do? You set up a Robin Hood fund. It sounds like that's the argument you're making about the Somali community, that there may have been some straight up criminals in there that were the ones sending money back to Al Shabaab, but there were also people in there that were um, giving this aid to people who weren't getting aid otherwise.
Autism, then nobody has autism in terms of how you can manage them. There was one
Sorry, what?
on, and it ultimately diverts resources away from kids who truly have autism. Because if every kid in the neighborhood has autism, then nobody has autism.
It's brilliant. So it's like I feel like I'm watching The Incredibles.
In terms of how you can manage them. There was one behavioral, and by the way, these kids, they carry that diagnosis of autism the rest of their lives.
No, no, they really don't. Like, what the fuck do you being? And by the way, this was autism spectrum disorder. And by the way, do you think what do you think they're not going to get a real job that they're qualified for because they got a diagnosis of autism when they were fucking 8? Get the fuck out of here.
Mom made a bad decision. The kid pays.
Dude, they got bigger fish to fry. It's harder for them to get a job because they're Somali in Minnesota than it is for them to get a job because they have fucking autism. Jesus Christ. Believe me, racism trumps ableism in a lot of these places.
For the rest of their life. There's one behavioral health organization, Mr. Vice President, in Minnesota. They received $11.5 million in Medicaid payments, but the top biller submitted 450 days where they claimed they were working more than 24 hours a day. I mean, even in the White House, that's tough. It's hard to work more than 24 hours a day. How it didn't get picked up is shocking to us at CMS. There are other red flags in Minnesota, including hundreds of beds.
Well, I think the organization might have been, they billed as the organization running 24 hours a day. That doesn't mean that they were awake nonstop. And the hourly part of it, you know, let's say you get, I don't know, $12 an hour, and then you get a certain amount for working past that as overtime, and you're billing based on that idea because your workers get regular pay and then overtime to keep going because there's a backup order for stuff like that. Then what the billing for the day, if they worked 4 hours past the normal workday, would pan out approximately to be 24 hours of hourly pay for that amount of money. Fuck, these people are stupid.
Beneficiaries receiving treatment linked to one location, which was impossible physically to be true. We had 8 beneficiaries in one of these substance use disorder centers, 8 who were already dead, but the center was still billing us.
Yeah, that's standard fraud. We've seen that before. That's not new. It's certainly not new to the Somali community. It's not new to immigrants at all. I mean, Jesus Christ, check the villages.
Not only did they let the person pass, they kept billing for it. That's the level of avarice we're talking about. So CMS is done paying.
Also, what do you mean let them pass?
We don't think jail sentences are the right way out. These criminals flee the country. Many are foreign nationals. Instead, we're launching the largest action against fraud that we've ever taken. The money's not going to ever leave the building again. We're going to start draining the swamp of
Dreaming it.
crooks that have inhabited it and are defrauding us. There are 3 bold actions. The first, and for many of you maybe the most important, is we're going to, for the first time, take a massive action to take care of our children. 53% of kids are born in the...
Oh my fucking God, he's gonna start socialism. Like here, this is so funny. This is so okay. One of the reasons why what Republicans have always worked on is that their fear of socialism or communism is that the state will not provide a center where this care is done or whatever. That's communism. We'll give funds out and you can pick where to get your health. If you're going to get, it's like a block grant concept. And this asshole is going to like, we're going to do something like there's just no way they don't get to this. The only way we can protect that funds are going to people who are using state funds is if they come to an actual state place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is socialism. That's what that is. That is definitely it. So, and by the way, it, knock yourself out, dumbass.
The poverty, they're supported through Medicaid. Disadvantaged seniors, individual with disabilities. It's unponderable that you would take advantage of these precious programs. Yet they're putting it at risk, all of it, by stealing the money. So it's our duty to preserve Medicaid, and what we're going to do is identify the scammers, which we have done in Minnesota. We've identified that they've hijacked, in particular, a certain part of the Minnesota Medicaid system. So
also, then in this for the DOJ, again, they're too busy redacting Trump's name out of the Epstein files.
Differently, and I'll just put the numbers out there, it's going to be $259 million of deferred payments for Medicaid to Minnesota, which we're announcing as I speak to Governor Walz and his team. And that's based on an audit of the last 3 months of 2025. Restated, $250 million is not going to be paid this month to Minnesota for its Medicaid claims. Now that's $250 million of money. That's your money. It's your taxpayer money.
It's theirs too. It's everybody's. It's pooled together. How about this? How about we start with the states that pay the least into it, and check for fraud there, where the recipients outweigh the tax output of the area, and then we'll work our way to Minnesota after we're done with Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee,
and these home
Alabama.
Services, which again are services that are typically things you would do for your family, but for whatever reason your family's not there to provide them, are very hard to audit. And for that reason, there's been a lot of slippage. The guardrails have not been well maintained, and if you're not serious about the integrity of the program, you'll see these problems happening in your state, which is why Minnesota's not alone, although they're the first to receive this action. These high-growth areas of fraud are difficult to police, so we require the states to take these issues seriously. This $250 million deferment is hopefully going to get on the radar screen for the state of Minnesota and make sure they are responsive to our requests.
Yeah, well, so basically, the idea is that anybody who's on Medicaid in the state, you're holding those people hostage because of your assumptive level of fraud in the rest of the state. So because somebody committed fraud and is currently being, investigated or charged for it, the person who genuinely needs Medicaid is now on the hook for that. This is why you don't put Republicans in charge of anything important.
Did what any honest and patient-focused agency would do. We have notified the state and that we will give them the money, but we're going to hold it and only release it after they propose and act on a comprehensive corrective action plan to solve the problem. If Minnesota fails to clean up the systems, the state will rack up $1 billion of deferred payments this year. Governor Walz has 60 days, sir, to respond to our letter. And if providers and beneficiaries are worried about getting
they will with a lawsuit.
Money and services, please call your governor. These are services the governor has already paid for. We are just not reimbursing the state. And to make it clear, there is a rainy day fund in Minnesota, so we are very confident that people will not be hurt in Minnesota.
Which is, again, this is a PR stunt.
This is not a problem with the people of Minnesota. It's a problem with the leadership of Minnesota and other states who do not take Medicaid preservation.
Yeah, I'm not holding this person hostage because of something they did. I'm holding this person hostage because of what you did. It's up to you whether I shoot this person. They're not involved in the fraud. But because this is my only way of getting your attention. So you're the one making me pull this trigger. That's what this is. It's a great look. It's like from a marketing standpoint, it's very attractive, very sexy, very smart.
Any delay in services is going to be should be laid at the seat of Governor Walz. I believe he will take
feet, I think, or perhaps laid at the seat of. All right. Also, again, I'm not shooting this hostage. You're making me shoot this hostage. That's what he's saying. Good Lord. Talk about abusive. Yeah.
They're not the only state that's floundering. We have more announcements from other states coming soon.
Yeah, one of them isn't Ohio, where Les Wexner lives, but the fraud is higher, right? Or Indiana, for example, another state Trump likes, higher amounts of fraud. Weird.
The second big issue has to do with Medicare. So that was Medicaid in Minnesota, takes care of our most vulnerable populations. Medicare takes care of our seniors. Durable medical equipment. Most of you have not thought much about this category. These are the folks who they serve wheelchairs, canes, they sell knee braces, catheters, Foley catheters. Durable medical equipment suppliers, because they ship prostheses and these items, they're a great target for fraudsters. Here's what they do. They can steal the beneficiary number, and they never ship the product. They pretend to ship the product, but nothing ever gets sent out. So there's no cost of goods sold, there's no inventory, there's no payroll, no one works in the place, it's empty. But they generate millions of dollars of fake bills. There was a national DME fraud scheme that generated $1.1 billion recently in fraudulent orthotic brace orders. The beneficiaries whose numbers were stolen and used, they couldn't get those products. Imagine if you're at an insulin pump and someone steals your number and orders an insulin pump fictitiously, bills Medicare, and then you come and want to get this to deal with your diabetes. You don't get it. That actually happened. And what happens to those patients? They don't know if their blood sugar's so high or so low that they might die. That's the risks that we're allowing by not taking this seriously. So today, issue number 2 is we're announcing a 6-month national moratorium.
Okay. The 1.17 billion is over 49 defendants. 324 defendants have been charged for over 14.6. This was in June of last year. By the way, from an ongoing investigation that they've been gathering evidence for, I think, 2 years, which always happens. Okay, wound care fraud, separate 1.1 billion scheme involved fraudulent claims for improper or unnecessary amniotic wound allografts. Transnational one operation involving international criminal organizations submitted over $10 billion in fraudulent claims to Medicare using stolen identities of 1 million Americans. Okay, that is not immigrants in the country. That is people outside the country. Operation Brace Yourself. Okay, 2019 to 2022. And this is, again, notice how he's taking credit for this stuff? 2019 to 2022, ongoing thing. In 2022, the DOJ charged 36 defendants in 13 federal districts. I don't remember who was president in 2022. You'll have to remind me. Districts over 1.2 billion in losses related to fraudulent telemedicine, genetic testing, and DME. Durable medical equipment. That's what he's talking about right there. That's what DME stands for. The scheme: international call centers provided Medicare beneficiaries to accept free orthopedic braces, knee, back, shoulder, wrist, whether they need them or not. This is when they call your grandmother and ask her for her social security number and all that kind of shit, and then they bill on her behalf and all this stuff. Telemedicine companies were paid illegal bribes to write unnecessary orders, which then sold to DME companies to bill Medicare. Result: dozens of individuals, including executives and medical professionals, were charged, and many have pled guilty. Let's see, doesn't charge in massive, 2019, 2025. This is the previous time. Yeah, here you go. The owners of dozens of durable medical equipment companies, along with executives at 5 telemedicine companies, this is pre-COVID, by the way, and 3 licensed medical professionals have been charged in what's been called one of the largest healthcare fraud schemes in the United States. Defendants allegedly participated in healthcare fraud schemes involving $1.2 billion in loss. FBI, do they have a time scheme on this? In which case were prosecuted. Indictments were unsealed in several jurisdictions, including South Carolina, New Jersey, and Florida. South Carolina, New Jersey, and Florida. Okay. They outlined an alleged scheme in which the DME companies paid illegal kickbacks and bribes in exchange for referring Medicare beneficiaries by medical professionals working with fraudulent telemedicine companies for back, shoulder, wrist, knee braces, blah, blah, blah. These defendants, who ranged from corporate executives to medical professionals, allegedly participated in an expansive and sophisticated fraud to exploit telemedicine technology meant for patients otherwise unable to access health care. Said Assistant Attorney General Benkowski in the news released by the DOJ. The Department of Justice will not tolerate medical blah, blah, blah. Okay. First International Call Center advertised Medicare benefits, urging them to accept. Okay, this is how the fraud worked. HHS issued a fraud warning, urging consumers to be wary of this scheme and act if they've reported it, because they'd call and try to trick you into giving you their information. Tom Ryan, President and CEO of AA Home Care. Today's action against individuals involved in schemes to defraud patients and taxpayers is welcome news to the AA Home Care and the home medical equipment community. We appreciate the effective work by federal law enforcement agencies and the Department of Health and Human Services to identify and prosecute those 24 individuals associated with DME companies, lead generation services, and physician practices who are taking advantage of the Medicare reimbursement system. Cases brought as part of the Medicare Fraud Strike Force, which maintains 14 strike forces operating in 23 districts. Since its inception in March of 2007, the force has charged nearly 4,000 defendants who have collectively billed the Medicare program for $14 billion. So this has been ongoing. This is, again, if you have a system like this shit is going to happen. You're going to need constant gardening. What they're coming in is acting like this is brand fucking new.
A national moratorium blocking all new enrollments for durable medical equipment, prostheses, orthotics, supplies across the board. These crimes are becoming a major source of
What?
So today, issue number 2 is we're announcing a 6-month national moratorium, blocking all new enrollments for durable medical equipment, prostheses, orthotics, supplies across the board. These crimes are becoming a major source of fraudulent activity. And
see. So because there's been fraud in the past, you can't start a new company, perhaps even to replace the fake company that got taken down. So you want to do this. You want to start a business. The next 6 months, you're fucked. If you just got your funding to try and do this or whatever, you can't get a license for durable medical equipment anywhere in the United States federally because of fraud. That's a regular part of dealing with this shit. In every business, there's bad actors and all this kind of stuff. If there was a big retail scam, suddenly you can't open your own retail store because some shit that went down at Target. Fucking hell.
Mr. Vice President, South Florida, do you ever go to McDonald's?
Jesus Christ.
Fraudulent activity. And I'll just mention, Mr. Vice President, South Florida, do you ever go to McDonald's?
Yeah. Too much.
We had rehearsed this. So there are twice as many durable medical equipment suppliers in South Florida than McDonald's.
Wow.
Yeah, because old people don't eat as much fast food, for one. It's a fucking, it's a seafood state on a lot of fronts. And it's full of fucking retirees. Why is that weird?
And that's not because Secretary Kennedy is closing down McDonald's. That's because the amount of fraud is so massive that it's easier to open one of these suppliers than open a bank account, which is why we're working with Secretary Bessent. And part of the reason for this
because Florida is sketchy as fuck.
Is it gives us time to be able to deal with these issues that have become massive. And if we just shut down South Florida, they'd all flee to California and to Texas.
Why? Why wouldn't they go to Arkansas? Why wouldn't they go to Tennessee? Why wouldn't they go to South Carolina or New Jersey where these other fraudsters were? Why the fuck do they have to go anywhere? If you're not supplying anything, why not just have a fucking post office box in Montana?
Have to shut the whole country down. This unfortunate necessity.
Yeah, I just said we practiced this already. Exactly. Because it's...
Yeah,
exactly. Ask Rick Scott. Jesus Christ.
To get on top of what we believe is billions of dollars of DME frauds. We've already stopped $1.5 billion of billing, but we need more time to shut down these bad guys. But it's going to be effective, and it's not going to touch the people who need these services. We have designed this system so that all the people who are already selling products can continue to sell products until we check them out, but no new DME enrollments, no ownership changes, all the things that fraudsters have done historically.
Yeah, Rick Scott, for those that don't know, his company pled guilty to $1.7 billion in fraud. I think it was Medicare fraud.
Will be blocked. This way we're preserving access or not allowing tax dollars to be stolen. Now, you may be asking, why is it so important to crush for fraud to assure the affordability of our nation?
No one is asking that. Fraud is a natural part of law enforcement. As a matter of fact, we have special fucking jails for it, asshole. We have jails for nonviolent criminals that have a major impact. And you know who you put there? Ghislaine fucking Maxwell. We have these club feds where these assholes have to sit because they didn't murder anybody, they didn't strangle anybody. They're guilty of a white collar crime or pink collar crime, but they didn't break a fucking window and shoot somebody. Their actions could have killed more people than, say, your average bank robber. But still, we put them in a minimum security prison with special effects because the idea is that they can be rehabbed and put back into society easier than other people. I would question that. I would say that, quite frankly, to his point about $1 million versus a year in jail, that's actually a fairly good trade-off. If you could work for a year and get $1 million out of it, if they can't recover the money, if you've hidden it well enough, and you just go, I'm guilty, I don't know where the money's gone. I snorted it. I spent it on hookers and blow, it's gone. And they go, okay, well, shit. And they just eat the loss, throw you in jail for a year, and then you get out and go to the fucking safety deposit box, you put it in. You made $1 million tax fucking free, and during your time at Club Fed, you had 3 hots and a cot. You didn't pay any rent. You didn't pay any taxes. You had your health care taken care of. Fuck, like there's almost a reasoning to like commit Medicare fraud of $1 billion, of like $1 million, $2 million. Hide the money away some way that you know they can't get access to it. Let them bust you if you have fucking an illness, literally. Just like do it because you don't, like this is a better version of Breaking Bad. Like this motherfucker, he could have literally done this, made this money by billing Medicare, stole $4 million from the taxpayer, have him thrown in jail, and they would have treated his cancer in fucking jail. And he wouldn't have had to fucking murder Jesse's fucking girlfriend by looking the other way when she died choking on her own vomit, which is why he sucks and the show's terrible. Anyways.
I'll just give you one example that we just finished dealing with. The Vice President's aware of this. We had skin substitutes that were generating, we believe this coming year, $23 billion in billing. Because we're able to shut that down to where it's supposed to be, because they have a role when used appropriately, every single senior in America, everyone, is going to get $132 extra money this year, just from that one thing that we shut down. That's the amount of money we're talking.
Sorry, what? You're writing a check to old people for $132? What the fuck are you talking about? Spoiler alert. It's early in the season. It's why he's a dick from the start. Fuck Walter White and his bullshit. You need to make this a screenplay. It's not a bad idea. I'm making that right now. I'm gonna. It's a modern day Robin Hood story with medical difficulties, and whether or not it's worth it. And then when the dude gets out of jail, he's like it's like the Shawshank Redemption, except it's surgery instead of a tube full of shit.
Bad, and it affects all of us. And to that note, because every one of you are affected, we want all of you to help us. So the third big announcement is we want to crush fraud by crowdsourcing ideas. We're issuing.
Sign me up, coach. I'm in. What do you need?
Request for information. We need and we want your help. The Vice President, myself, the President.
Is there a reward?
All of us know that all of us are smarter than any one of us. So what can you do? We want your input on how to prevent, detect, and respond to fraud in government-funded.
Sorry, motherfucker. The new fraud czar wants me to do his goddamn job for him? I've got a great suggestion. Have the guy who just got assigned the job do it. Actually, do it. You do it, you dumb motherfucker. Use the American, you want to not waste American tax dollars? Use those tax dollars for the doing of the job, not the performing of the job. Take that kid who's working the fucking camera in the back of the room and have somebody set it up and forget it because they're already filming this shit. Get video, have a White House videographer who just does all of it instead of a department specific one. And then rent the room like a fucking boardroom at WeWork so that nobody's overlapping. Film the whole fucking thing and video it and save it and save everybody a bunch of fucking money. And then instead of talking about it, do the fucking thing.
Whatever ideas you have, we're interested in. Our goal.
I get great ones. Chat room, are those good ideas? I would like to say what I just presented. You want to save the taxpayer money? Do your fucking job. Don't talk about your job. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Do it. Land the fucking plane and, figure out how you're going to land the plane and then tell me about it. Everybody in this, they're fucking, it's all these TV dickheads. And I am allowed to say that because I'm from that neighborhood. In this government that are more interested in telling the story than being in it. Jesus.
supercharged program integrity over the next 6 months. So we put in a request. That means providers and suppliers and payers and technology companies, patient advocates, beneficiaries. If you see fraud, you let us know. A state Medicaid director can show us patterns of fraud that we're not aware of. A provider can help understand compliance burdens and how to deal with those more effectively. Patient advocates get cracking on making sure that people are aware of fraud. And like we have done already this year by pulling in those kinds of ideas, we've stopped almost $6 billion from leaving the building, but that leaves a lot more out there that we can take advantage of. So over the next 60.
Also, by the way, he's including funds they're cutting off to real Medicaid recipients in Minnesota in that.
The Crush Initiative, which just issued, is us asking you to help.
Sorry, this is called the Crush Initiative? Dude, we're all fucking crush it, bro. Bro, we're fucking crushing it. What an asshole.
Almost $6 billion from leaving the building, but that leaves a lot more out there that we can take advantage of. So over the next 60 days, the Crush Initiative, which just
the Crush Fraud Initiative. You're not just like you're not naming it after the fucking turtle in Finding Nemo, asshole.
Is us asking you to help us build something better, to help the brave patriots out there who want to play a role to play a role. Call 1-800-HHS-TIPS if you see.
Jesus Christ. Do our job for us. How the fuck? Yeah, if you're committed, that's right. Kilkenny, if you're committing fraud, please turn yourself in. Make our jobs easier. Self-deport yourself from being a fraudster.
Fraud, or just go to cms.gov/fraud. Those are simple, easy ways for you to help us address the problems the Vice President highlighted. God bless you all, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Great job.
Great job. Going to shake your hand right there. Now, about South Florida being a dung heap.
Very, very important initiative, and we'll take a.
Okay, real quick. If all of these big busts are coming out of South Florida, why aren't you shit-talking Florida the way you shit-talk Minnesota? Because it's been an ongoing problem there for, it seems like, decades. And the problem with some of the billing nationwide comes from South Florida. It's not localized to the funds going to fucking Minnesota the way the Somali fraud allegedly is.
I didn't expect you to put me on the spot with Bobby Kennedy about my fast food habits, but here we are.
That's me being charming. I eat human. I often will eat human so that they think that I do thing like human people doing.
Sir in the front.
Sir in the front.
Two things, Mr. Vice President. First, can you talk about the legal authority under which the federal government pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid? And secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, Mark.
Actually, I don't know shit about that.
Briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as well.
You're part of the White House, dung heap. What you mean is the State Department, motherfucker.
Certainly, you know, a situation that we're.
You're the Vice President. Jesus Christ. This asshole thinks he's like. I'm at CMS today. I represent CMS now, so.
Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more.
Then how do you know what defines bad? And hold it real quick. Let's see. Let me show you what he's talking about. Yeah, here it is. Cuba shot people in a speedboat from America is the theory. So this is 4 shot dead on U.S. Registered speedboat. And again, U.S. registered is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. 4 people who entered Cuban waters on a U.S. registered speedboat have been shot dead by border guards, Cuban government said. There was also, I believe, a shootout. 6 additional passengers were wounded in the incident, which took place near an island on Cuba's northern coast. Maybe it was just somebody coming from Little St. James burying some shit. 4 people who entered Cuban waters on a U.S. registered speedboat have been shot dead by border guards. 6 additional passengers were wounded in the incident. U.S. Secretary of State said the nationalities of those on board is unclear. Again, and that the U.S. will make determinations based on facts. Right now, we're still gathering facts. Okay. He said the boat was not carrying U.S. government personnel. Cuba's government said it did not know the identities of those on board the vessel. Well, then how do you know who the fucking wounded are? Nor what it was doing in the area, and that an investigation has been launched to clarify the event. Look, I get it if everybody died and the boat was fucking destroyed, but obviously there are 6 living people. Who the fuck are they? With the registered Florida registered vessel, shocker, was detected near Cayo Falcones, in the country's central Villa Clara province on Wednesday morning when a Cuban boat carrying 5 members of the ministry's border guard approached the vessel. The crew of the violating speedboat opened fire and wounded the Cuban commander, the statement said. As a consequence of the confrontation, as of this time, reported 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 injured. Those injured were evacuated and given medical assistance. But you don't know who the fuck they are? Rubio spoke from St. Kitts and Nevis, where he had a travel trip to meet Caribbean leaders to talk about how to get to hidden stuff on the island and make sure there are no, chips in the video cameras there, like they were at the Guthrie, house that could be, reverse engineered to pull footage. Amid the Trump administration push to ramp up pressure on Cuba's government, it's highly unusual to see shootouts on the open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. Yeah, no shit. That's why it's news. We're going to find out exactly what happened, who was involved, and we'll make a determination on the basis of what we find out. U.S. Coast Guard has traveled to the vicinity of the attack. I don't know who has possession of the vessel. This is the first thing we have. Yeah. I mean, there is something, if you were just briefed about it, you can know that there are 4 dead, 6 wounded. We don't know the nationality of the people. The boat itself was registered in Florida, but we don't know if they actually owned it or if if there was, they were any or all Americans on there. They certainly weren't government personnel and they weren't military. And that's what you say in that situation. Like we'd send spies into Cuba on a fucking speedboat. You know what? In this administration, we might be doing stupid shit like that. Who can fucking say?
On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's assigning of the administration actually, we're the ones who spend this money. Congress appropriates it. We're the ones who actually make sure this goes to the people it ought to go to. And inherent in that is making sure that it only goes to the people that Congress says that it should go to.
Yeah, but that's the DOJ to do that. If it's allocated toward the state, the governor is the authority on the reception of those funds, not somebody, whether you don't like the state or because the guy was the running mate of your last opponent.
We shouldn't be sending money to fraudsters. We should not be sending money to companies that are committing mass fraud. We shouldn't be sending money to anybody that's...
So we're cutting off funds to Florida as well? Because it sounds like they're the literal beating heart of this fraud scheme.
Defraud the American taxpayer. So I know, Oz and his team, he's got the best team, I think, in healthcare anywhere in the private or the public sector. It's one of
Yeah, that's just fucking stupid.
the things I love about working with Dr. Oz is he's brought great people along with him, and congratulations on this. But I feel quite confident we have the legal authority to do this. And again, I'd reiterate, we don't want to do this.
But Trump is making me.
We don't want to be in a situation where the state of Minnesota is being so careless with federal tax dollars that we have to turn the screws on them a little bit so that they take this fraud seriously. You heard Dr. Oz say this. Tim Walz could call him, could call me, could call anybody in the administration, and we've given him...
They already spoke.
...days to respond to this.
There's already... there's legal precedent that the fraud is being looked into. There's full investigations. The state isn't, unlike in the shooting of in Minnesota itself. The state authorities are cooperating fully with the federal authorities about this fraud in the Medicare and Medicaid funds and the autism funds. So the same cannot be said about the murder of Alex Preddy.
All we need the governor and the administration in Minnesota to do is something quite simple, which is to show that before you give Medicaid funds to somebody, you're taking seriously whether they provided the services that they say that they're providing. And the fact that there are so many people handing out millions and billions of dollars
in Florida
federal Medicaid money without even confirming that they're doing the thing that they say that they're doing. It's a disgrace. It's a defrauding of the American taxpayer, and we're stopping it. Caitlin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Two questions. One, on the 60 days that Governor Walz has to respond, what exactly is the condition that he needs to meet for this funding to be released back to his state? I just wasn't really clear on that. And
Nobody is.
on Iran,
He's got to prove to us that he's serious, and he's got to kiss Trump's ass or something.
here, can you explain to the American people why the United States would need to strike Iran to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon if the United States obliterated their enrichment program last summer?
Well, I'm not going to make any news on Iran.
Because that's an oxymoron. Thank you, Caitlin. And I can understand why you're not smiling about these questions.
Today, Caitlin, I'll let the president make those announcements. As you know, he is sending two of his best negotiators to Geneva tomorrow in order to continue to try to strike the best deal possible for the American people. But the principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem, as the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically, but of course the president has other options as well. On what we need to see from Governor Walz, I'll say something about that briefly and then turn it over to Dr. Oz. Look, it's actually pretty simple. What we want to see from the governor of Minnesota, from the entire administration there in Minnesota, is some affirmative steps to make sure that the people who are billing us for Medicaid services are actually providing those Medicaid services. The main source of
Then send in patient advocates to make sure people are getting the care. Maybe that's the way of doing it. Sorry, that actually gives a shit about patients. I'm sorry, you're just doing this to shame state governments of blue states that have more, higher tax bases and more expenditures than red states.
whether it's a small business or a bigger company, is you
What a
have
fucking
people
goon.
who are billing the government millions, tens of millions, billions of dollars saying that they're providing a service, but there's no actual confirmation. There's no follow-up to ensure that they're actually providing those services. We want to see that follow-up from Minnesota. Dr. Oz, maybe you can speak to a little bit more about how exactly we want to see that.
Let me combine both these questions. So on December the 7th, we sent a letter to Governor Walz asking for a corrective action plan, which is a mechanism for us to extract from the state what they think they can do to fix the problems. The answer we got back at the end of the month, which is what the deadline was inadequate. We alerted them to this. We issued guidance that we were going to defer income based on an audit of last quarter's money. So we actually went dutifully through all of the bills that were sent to us. We found that of these high-risk services, roughly half of them, you really couldn't trust the data we were looking at. It's not that the numbers don't add up. The backup to the numbers is not there. So what do we need to have happen? We need to know that the providers actually are the real providers. Oftentimes, there's no person that you can associate with the treatment itself.
By the way, by and large, what he's talking about are things that are happening in South Florida, not Minnesota.
After you adjudicate who these providers are, make sure they're not already in trouble for doing bad stuff, and then evaluate all the current providers to make sure they're supposed to be able to provide these services. And there's a whole slew of tools that we can use, including
Supposed to be able? You mean actually able?
before you pay the bill, that the bill is legitimate. That prepayment review is incredibly important. It's cumbersome. It's clunky. We wish we didn't have to do it. But I'm going to highlight something that the Vice President mentioned. These are services that we normally would not pay for. They're services we give to you because your family can't do them for you.
What the fuck does that mean? That's like entirely the process of government. Like what? If providing for the general welfare is in the fucking Constitution, and the general welfare means helping people when they are affected by, extraordinary circumstances of outside of their control, namely disease and environmental, especially, if that's part of it, what do you mean it's not something you would normally provide?
A hernia operation, there's a dozen people who have credentials, licensing, we can use a scar. But if your service is transporting you to the doctor's office and you can't tell me who actually drove the car and why they billed so much and did the patient even go to the doctor's office, then we have to do our job, which you would want us to do, which is to ask for some backup, and there wasn't any backup. So to echo, 60 days, that's the deadline. We expect to hear back. We've been following the rules meticulously to do this correctly, which is one of the reasons we're optimistic will be effective in Minnesota.
Okay, by the way, can I explain something what they're arguing for right now? May I? May I actually to all the maggots in the room? What Dr. Oz is talking about here is the need for more regulations. That in a circumstance where a lot of money is doled out, you need regulations to make sure you're getting what you pay for and no more and no less. And that you are clearly defining what that will pay for and what it will not. That's what a regulation is. And in Donald Trump killing regulations willy fucking nilly, it's not surprising, especially during COVID, when he was just basically saying, fuck it, we got to save the stock market, that there was a shit ton of financial fraud born out of that period because he was so worried about goosing the economy more than saving the lives of the American people that it just opened the floodgates for anybody who wanted to, or the barn doors, I guess, for anybody who wanted to try and do this kind of fraud. You need regulations. You need proper governance. This is why we have fucking oversight and committees. And this is why the committees, when they look into this oversight, it should be doing this instead of crawling up Hunter Biden's ass for fucking 3 years and getting nothing. You don't think James Comer's committee couldn't have found their way to some Medicare or Medicaid fraud or insurance fraud or crypto fraud over the process of the time they were chasing down the $2 million in unpaid taxes that the IRS was already after Hunter Biden for owing? This is why you have regulations. And what they are arguing for now is another form of of a deeper level of regulation. They just want, and arguably it's regulations for friends, for foes, but not for friends.
Great.
Mr. Vice President, I'm just wondering about this huge universe of fraud that you're talking about, $300 billion. How did you arrive at that number? What number is realizable in terms of savings? And you've mentioned California, you've said that you're going to move on to other states. Can you just give us a kind of snapshot of where you see that? And
wow, actual questions. I think we all owe the mainstream media an apology for this woman doing her job. If only journalists would do their job. Now, obviously, it's the follow-up that a lot of people have a problem with, but these are rock-solid questions.
For all of the states that you're going after and where you see these problems ruled by Democratic, California and Minnesota are both Democratic-run states, so just a little bit of a preview.
Well, you said ruled by Democrats. We didn't use that word. You did. But here's what I'd say. $300 billion in the grand scheme of how much the federal government spends on healthcare services, it sounds like a ton of money. It's actually, the federal government spends well over $1 trillion in providing medical services to the American people. And based on what we've seen, based on the amount of services that we've seen that have been billed that are fraudulent, and also based on the fact that in a number of blue states, and this is true as far...
Hey, asshole, well over $1 trillion is not $2 trillion. It's not even over $1.5 trillion. So we're talking about 1 to 1.4. Let's just go there. Of that, especially if it's $1 trillion, closer to that number, 300 billion is a practical third of that. So yeah, it's a big fucking number. You're talking about cutting medical expenditure to the American people by a third because you're convinced that a third of the things that Americans get help from the federal government for are fraudulent. A fucking third.
No, only in blue states where you have illegal aliens encouraged to get on the Medicaid program. We actually think $300 billion may be conservative. And we certainly, our ambition here is to get as much of that money back for the American taxpayer as possible. Again, we're taking the social safety net. We're taking something that exists.
Okay, it's a made up fucking number. It's fucking made up. There is no standard. And if there is one, he doesn't know it. Oz might have a more detailed answer because he's actually in the job at this time. But Vance doesn't fucking know. He knows it sounds big.
Benefit of people who can't pay for medicine on their own. We want to help our fellow Americans. We can't do that if those programs are being defrauded by people who either shouldn't be here in the first place or have the legal right to be here but are committing criminal acts by defrauding these systems.
A bunch of the people who are committing the fraud aren't even in America while they're doing it. They were defrauding using telemedicine.
Clarify one number.
Go ahead, please.
Just on the numbers, the $300 billion is from the Kaiser Family Foundation assessment of estimated 5% fraud in all healthcare, not just federally funded healthcare.
All right. 5%. Then it. All right. 300 billion across everybody: insurance companies, federal, veterans benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. Okay, hold on. Kaiser Foundation, 300 billion fraud. No, sorry. No. Let's see. Sorry, you know what? It's funny when I looked up Kaiser Foundation, $300 billion fraud. You know what came up? Kaiser Permanente affiliates pay $556 million to resolve False Claims Act allegations in January of 2026. Let's see. $1 million fraud estimate. Yep. No, I don't see that. Yeah, Kaiser Permanente defrauded Medicare of $1 billion, according to the DOJ. There's another 400 million opportunity for Kaiser in 2006 alone. Affiliates pay 556. Yeah. Sorry. So 300 billion is across
These systems.
Can I clarify one number?
Go ahead, please.
Just on the numbers, the $300 billion is from the Kaiser Family Foundation assessment.
Sorry, Kaiser Family Foundation. Beg your pardon. Mm-hmm. Everybody else, you could probably get data mining company fabricated medical things 2021. At least 2 dozen whistleblower cases, some dating to 2009, have alleged fraud by Medicare Advantage plans. Yeah, I don't know where he's getting that. And quite frankly, every time I look for it, I get stories about Kaiser Permanente doing, at this count, like $2.2 billion in fraud themselves.
Of estimated 5% fraud in all healthcare, not just federally funded healthcare. So it's 5% of the total, roughly $6 trillion. We spend almost close to $2 trillion, $1.8 trillion of federal monies. So the federal portion would be about $100 billion. And we believe much of that would be achievable. It's not fraud.
Okay, so $100 billion of fraud out of 1.7. And it's waste, fraud, and abuse. It's not all fraud. It's not $100 million of fraud. It's $100 billion of that. So we're going to shave some of that off. So we're talking about $100 billion. He's trying to go after $100 billion, what they assume is fraud, I guess, yearly in a $1.7 trillion system. Okay.
Fraud, waste, and abuse.
Right. Yeah. So we're not saying it's all fraud. Some of it is our fuck up. Some of the waste is because of assholes. Dr. Oz is. I mean, when you got to justify a number like that, it makes sense that you'd hire a bunch of fuck ups because you've got to look how much waste there is. He's in charge of it.
Sorry.
Yep. No, man. Thank you.
So again, the number is 100 billion of the 1.7 trillion. And I told you, Vance doesn't know this fucking number. And again, this is an estimate based on the Kaiser Family Foundation, tied to obviously Kaiser Permanente, the hospital system, which was defrauding Medicare to the tune of about $2 billion.
Yeah, you can go first and then you.
So that the fraudsters, when busted, are assuming like everybody's doing it. It's not just me.
Thank you very much, Vice President. As you know, the Kurds have been loyal allies to the United States for decades. You're fighting dictatorship in Iraq, we're fighting terrorism in the region, and recently President Masoud Barzani worked closely with the U.S. Special Envoy to Syria to help find a peaceful solution to the conflict there. How do you see the future of this strategic relationship?
Yeah, he doesn't know anything about this, dude. I understand you're talking to the vice president, but yeah, you're going to come up dry. Yeah.
between the Kurdistan and the United States of America?
Well, look, let me be brief here because we're here to focus on the fact that way too many people are defrauding the American population.
Still citation needed.
You know, we have a great
I
relationship
guess if any is too many, then sure.
with the Kurds. The president loves the Kurds. I know that the entire administration
Yeah, we could tell by how he left them high and dry during the last term.
had great contacts and great friendships with the people, the Kurdish people in various countries all over the world.
Yeah, not in the area that they would like to become Kurdistan, obviously.
Our attitude is we want those people to be able to live in peace and harmony and prosperity with their neighbors. We've pursued a foreign policy of peace in part because we want the Kurdish people, but also the Arab people who live there, the Jewish people who live there, the Christians. We want everybody to be able to live in peace. And that has been the main focus of our policy in Syria. It's been the main focus of our policy really all over the world. Ma'am? Yeah. No, let's, thank you.
How do you intend to make sure that the consequences of ending these fraud programs in Minnesota don't impact the people who are enrolled in Medicaid? And at a bigger picture, how...
Yeah, how do you claim victimization without victimizing more people?
I think that the polls show that Democrats historically have the advantage on healthcare. Do you think that these efforts on fraud might change that for Republicans?
You know, I'm not really worried about the politics. I'm worried about the justice of it all. I think it's offensive that
Yeah, that's what she's asking you about, shithead.
American taxpayers pay into these programs and they are defrauded.
Yeah, and it's offensive that your focus on fraud would deny people who actually deserve care that care because you have a bone to pick with the fucking governor of the state.
In some ways, more significantly than that, it's really sad.
When there's already an ongoing investigation and people are already going to jail.
That American children who need these
Trump likes cheese skirts, right?
services aren't able to get them because it's going to fraudsters instead of somebody else. So here's what I think. I mean, look, we're certainly going to make sure that our anti-fraud efforts go after the fraudsters and not after anybody who actually benefits from these services.
How can you say that when you're just going to cut off all funds to Minnesota unless they acquiesce to your definition of fraud control?
But I actually think the question is a little off in a way, because the problem is not
because you don't have an answer to it?
Going after the fraud. The problem is the fact that these programs are being defrauded to begin with.
No, that's always happened, and it's always going to happen because that's the nature of the constant gardening of governance and law enforcement. The question becomes, do you victimize more people than the people actually causing the fraud in your attempts to go after the fraud? If you're too stupid to understand that, then you shouldn't be anywhere near the power that you have.
They will not exist. Our social safety net will disappear unless we take fraud more seriously. So what I'm most worried about is that unless we preserve these programs for the next generation, they're going to disappear and all the money is going to go to fraudsters. Go ahead.
Yes, Alio, sure.
You're mentioning a lot about justice of it all. So what exactly would that look like? I think Dr. Rice had mentioned that jail sentences aren't necessarily the right way to go, but is there a way of tossing this money back? Ways to get refunds? Do you want predictions on that? And then I have follow-up questions.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are certainly ways to claw some of the money back. It depends on the circumstances of the case. When you're talking about hundreds of...
All right, this is just yammering. I have to go because it's already 5 o'clock, but I wanted to show you something before I did because I was enjoying the Candace Owens going after Charlie Kirk's widow show where she's just doing this special... I don't know, this story about how Erica Kirk was not really raised by her single mom because her parents got divorced and then her mom had a boyfriend or some shit. I don't know what the fuck. And I don't care. I'm just glad they're backbiting. They're both idiots. But, and then Ben Shapiro's response. But this one seems the weirdest of the stuff. I just found out Trump is ready to do something insane. Okay. And there's a picture of him, I guess, attacking Iran. It's his finger on the button and he looks crazy. I don't know why Ben is yelling. Is he yelling don't or go? Right? It's happening. I'm Ron Burgundy. Right? So let's find out. Is it that he's going to attack no matter what? Oh, this is his AI shit. Yikes.
Yo, what's up, guys? I'm inside of the Capitol for the State of the Union, and
And the proving yourself to be state media like you are. Also, nice Who Framed Roger Rabbit haircut.
an incredible show. We're going to move live here really soon, but I wanted to share with you some inside information that I just received from, let's just say, someone who...
Let's just say someone. I'm assuming you didn't receive it from a talking frog with magical powers or a robot.
really knows what is about to happen. And what's about to happen is President Trump is going to throw down the gauntlet on Iran. And there are signals all across the world that the president is either going to potentially bomb Iran during the State of the Union, or bomb Iran after the State of the Union, or potentially bomb Iran right before the State of the Union, which would be right now. And
Well, okay, so obviously your source is either dicking with you and just trying to lure you into a bathroom for a handy.
why so many people are saying that, and why I just got a very strong signal for that from, let's just say, within Trump's inner circle and inner orbit is, well, because there are obvious, massive military movements all across the globe in the direction of setting 60 to 70% of our deployable military directly in the vicinity of Iran. This is something that is going to clearly accelerate the potential of a strike on Iran, and Donald Trump's going to use this as an opportunity for leverage against the Ayatollahs. Now, what does the administration want? I asked this. How could you justify this to the American people? And what ultimately the deep state wants...
What? How am I supposed to sell this shit?
...is for the Ayatollahs to be toppled because they still are really, really butthurt about what happened in the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s. But this is the critical issue.
Sorry, who?
Because they still... And what ultimately the deep state wants is for the
deep state
Ayatollahs to be toppled because they still are really, really butthurt about what happened in the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s. But this is the critical...
So Trump's just going to do what the deep state wants him to do? Because leadership?
...issue at hand. Will they give up the nuclear weapon? Iran has allegedly said no, according to my contacts, and Donald Trump is going to act. He may act tonight. He may act live during the State of the Union. He may...
Jesus Christ. Was this just his asshole push to try and get the numbers up for the State of the Union? Like, people weren't going to watch, so how do I help to make sure people watch? He might announce that we're striking Iran during. You better tune in.
Announce it live during the State of the Union. There's supposed to be...
he also might need a diaper change after, and then...
meetings in Geneva this week with representatives from Iran to try and prevent this from happening. But I think from what I've heard, it's been cooked. And there's been reporting out that say this effectively, that say that the decision has been made by Trump and Hegseth, that Vance was sort of acting as a broker for not doing this, and that Raisin Kane, he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that he also was against it. But ultimately, the Warhawks ended up winning.
Because Trump needs cover from the Epstein files?
Obviously, President Trump saw that his poll numbers went up when he bombed Iran the first time.
Holy shit. So that's the reasoning then. You're cool with that. That's your dude might bomb a country because he liked the bump he got in the polls.
His poll numbers went up when he black-bagged Nicolas Maduro. His poll numbers go up when he takes strong military action.
Among who? They suck right now, and they're getting worse.
You may see some of that against the cartels, I've also been told. And so I guess the reality of all of this
is that you support a guy who would bomb people for poll numbers? Holy shit. We're long past no war for oil. Like we're at now, like, how about no war for likes?
A rowdy one. I mean, it's going to make for must-watch TV tonight. And, well, we may be getting the first wartime announcement at a State of the Union live. I mean, wouldn't that be perfect Trump?
It'd be fucking ridiculous.
One final.
By the way, the fact that he's like, his definition of perfect Trump is Trump announcing an illegal attack on another country, going to war with another country, without Congress declaring war, just announcing that at the State of the Union while everybody's there, just to inform them that the missiles are away. Hallelujah.
Idea on all.
That's his definition of perfect Trump.
Is that, you know, when you look at the F-22 Raptors that are now like doing operational facilities in Israel, right? Operational missions and runs in Israel. We've never seen that before. When you look at the massive military buildup around Iran.
Yeah, it sounds like the peace president. No more forever wars and stuff. It's like right on fucking cue, buddy. Congratulations.
Is this going to lead us into something that is a much broader conflict? Now, is this something that they're...
Nah, I don't think so. I think it can't be one and done, but it's, two and done. We've done it before. It might require a third and done. I don't know. Maybe there's maybe Trump will this weekend declare mission accomplished before the attack.
To really literally put boots.
And you can create a AI video of him in a flight suit landing on a deck to impress everybody.
Ground. And I think the instinct from inside of the administration is that the Iranian regime is so close to toppling that just give it a little.
11 of these beasts landed in Israel. Okay, this is the first time in U.S. history U.S. deploys fighter jets to Israel soil for operational combat or joint exercise or training. Right.
And the house of cards will fall in. But what's going to happen next? Is this going to mean that there is, Turkey's already trying to close their border with Iran. Does this mean that, that we're going to get ourselves into an Iraq or an Afghanistan situation? If that's the case...
I don't know. What did your someone say, asshole?
Then it's going to be really hard to make the case that this is America first, right?
Yeah.
Action.
Yeah. Maggots are going to take it as Israel first. Trump's going to go, Israel? I'm not doing this for Israel. I'm doing it for my own poll numbers. And you'll say whatever the fuck they tell you to say, bend over.
Because it's not America first to get embroiled in more Middle East wars or more wars for regional hegemony than to the lands that are 5,000 miles away from America. You can see J.D. Vance's thought process on all of this.
White House officials tell Reuters that President Donald Trump will outline his plans for Iran during the State of the Union. Yeah, he kind of didn't.
He's often written about and spoken about it. You have to sell this kind of stuff to the American people. But nonetheless, we've heard that the war hawks have won and that Donald Trump is and will be announcing, war in Iran tonight, potentially, as soon as tonight. And so I guess stay watching. It's going to be historic. And never a dull moment. Here's what the administration has been saying about war with Iran.
Also, what do you mean never a dull moment? It's just always exciting. You never know what's going to happen. It's wild. Asshole, the dude you support is not only, you're talking about him starting a war for no particular reason other than his own popularity, but going against a particular campaign promise, being flip-flopping, as it were, on exactly why the vast majority of your viewers voted for this dipshit. It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe she'll bring potato salad. It's a potluck dinner. What can you expect? You never know. And sometimes it'll be a Jell-O mold. Who can say? It's wild. We'll find out when we get there, I guess.
The last 24 hours, you can see there's an obvious ratcheting up of the rhetoric. There's obviously a predictive programming that's happening here.
Oh, shit. So, predictive programming. So, to be clear, you mean the Trump administration is starting a propaganda move to feed a line about their reasoning to attack Iran to the American people to justify it, just like Bush did. Just like the yellow cake argument. It's predictive programming. They're insisting that you believe this. They are shoving this idea into your empty fucking dome, assuming that you're going to buy it. And you're like, shit, I guess we will.
And so, and it's really not hard to read the tea leaves, but I'm telling you, I just had a conversation, and you had to hear this. Trump's going to announce war with Iran. We'll see. Here we go. Here's the administration's been saying.
You mentioned Operation Midnight Hammer, the president's touting the success of the military. One of the things that the president said, Iran nuclear sites will be quickly obliterated. We heard from Steve Witkoff just a few days ago also saying that
Audio's awesome.
he was maybe just a week away from getting access to bomb-making material. How would he square those two statements? What exactly?
She's just sniffing. That's the statement. Just a bunch of... I thought this was RFK's statement about cocaine on toilet seats.
Strikes just not as effective, or were they being built more quickly than the administration?
No, the president's initial statement, and the president reiterated that True Social, that Operation Midnight Hammer was an overwhelmingly successful mission that did, in fact, obliterate Iran's nuclear facilities. That is not just verified by the President of the United States, but also the International Atomic Energy Commission as well. That does not mean that Iran may never try again to establish a nuclear program that could directly threaten the United States and our allies abroad, and that's what the President wants to ensure can never happen again. And just one more note, but with
Well, obliteration would kind of... So you're saying it's not obliterated. Okay, gotcha.
To Iran before I run into my morning meeting. President Trump's first option is always diplomacy, but as he has shown, he is willing to use the lethal force of the United States military if necessary. So it's always, the president is always...
I have no idea what he's going to do. I have to go meet with a crazy person right now, and I'm barely holding on by my fingernails. But, you know, if you're the kind of person that I am, this is the situation you end up in. So I'm just living in my own doom loop. So thank you for your questions, and fuck off.
Final around here, and I've seen a lot of sensationalist reporting over the past day that is just completely untrue. And anyone speculating to the media, hiding behind an anonymous source, pretending to know what President Trump is...
She's talking about you, Benny.
...or a decision he will make with respect to action against Iran has no idea what they're talking about.
Qatar, countries, nobody could have signed. You would have had that threat. Nobody could have had, you couldn't have had peace in the Middle East. So now we may have to take it a step further, or we may not. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days. But this meeting today is proof with determined leadership, nothing is impossible.
If you put your trust in strafe bombing and B-52s.
Well, I'm obviously not going to make any announcements today. I think the president has a lot of options. We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that, too. And so what the president has been very clear with the Iranians, and actually I just talked to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner this morning about some of their negotiations, is the United States has certain red lines. Our primary interest here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon...
Yeah, you obliterated their nuclear program. What the fuck is this about?
A lot of other...
So it's just can you have temporary obliteration? My doctor described it as a mild obliteration. I should be able to heal in a very short order.
Teams, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them.
All right, that's the other piece of this. And then he followed it up with this one, where Tucker storms White House for emergency meeting with Trump. War? Brink of war? This is the title. There you go. And so I guess the assumption is the oh no phase, and this is the oh my god, he does like wood. Oh. Okay, being the goat and riding a goat are two different things. This is often used as a sign that you are a member of a secret society. I know because I get accused of this being a Mason. If you ride in on a goat, you're... The assumption is in the neo-Christian crowd, the evangelicals, is that you're demonic. Maybe that's the point, that Benny Johnson's making. Why wouldn't you just have a goat come up to the White House and then have it transmuted to Tucker, and people go, "Oh, I see, he is the goat." What a douchebag.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. It's amazing what you can figure out if you're just observant. The world around you, you could see that.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, you can just look at stuff. Like if you just spend all your time on fucking Twitter, look at these fucking panels. Like, what the hell? Like the number of tabs this dickhead has open.
About to go to war with Iran. That's like plainly obvious. This is about 60% of America's deployable military is currently surrounding Iran. Look at this. The boats, subs, planes, all of the assets, all of the implements.
Oh, that you know about, by the way.
That are here available for the complete and total destruction of that nation have now been set effectively on the borders of that nation, surrounding it entirely. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happens next.
Somebody moves most of their risk chips to South Asia.
Something anecdotal. I live in Tampa.
This explains so much.
And this is right next to CENTCOM. This is Central Command, which effectively calls the shots on all these kind of things, right? For our military.
Right, so you can hear it through the wall. You put a glass to the wall last night and you could hear it.
And it's also where Special Forces is. And man, we have had these C-17s taking off above my house, and they go only at night, so you can't actually film them. It's like hard to film them, but you can hear them because they sound so different from a commercial aircraft. Vroom, 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 like again and again and again. These things.
Benny's upset because his sleep cycle, his circadian rhythm is being thrown off by these giant military planes. Boo fuckity who, for one. But this is how you know military shit is happening. You just hear it. These planes are flying around over my house. I mean, we're going to war, baby.
Just plowing through the sky, heading, of course, in the direction of Europe.
How do you know if you can't film them? Maybe, and also, why would be the direction of Europe? You mean left to right over your house or right to left? Maybe they're tricking you. Maybe they're doubling back and headed towards Venezuela. You ever think about that? Maybe he's starting the land bombing in Central America.
And this has now been effectively, proven true, not just in meme form, right? USS Ford waiting to liberate Iran, but also in the mapping of where these planes and munitions are heading. Again, these are like these monster globe masters that are flying all across the
up and down the U.S. coast up to this is the United States. You do realize the ocean is that way. Europe's that way, not all right.
Country C-17s here are flying on their way, presumably to Iran.
Well, it's a big presumption.
Also, the pizza tracker near the Pentagon is popping off. And whenever that pizza tracker goes sky high, you can tell something's about to happen because everyone's ordering pizzas at the Pentagon in order to get ready for something like this. You can see here, U.S. surveillance refueling aircraft in Portugal. Imagine being Iranian negotiators and seeing this on your feed.
Yeah, so the idea is that it's performative, not realistic, but
look at them stacked one across the other, those big gray planes. You can see here in real time, these C-17 Globe Masters. Look at them taking off right now. This is happening, people. I'm not saying that I want it to happen exactly, but I can tell you that
so you want it to happen inexactly?
American elites and the deep state have wanted to topple Iran for a very long time. Iran,
and again, so Donald Trump is saying, okay,
well on its way to having a civil war as we speak. They think now is the right time to do it. Lots of U.S. cargo planes in the air right now. What do other people say? Well, this post on 4chan claims we're going to actually nuke Iran. It's going viral.
I mean, it's crazy bullshit, but awesome.
Former CIA employee John Kirikow claims that President Trump has decided to strike Iran as early as Monday or Tuesday, that would be today, and only J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard are standing in the way. We also hear, little birdies tell us, that the Joint Chiefs...
Kirikow's wrong all the fucking time. Jesus Christ. Like when they ask him about his sources for a lot of the stuff, he talks to like journalists that he likes that he talks to. Well, why wouldn't I just talk to the fucking journalists? They're the ones that's actually doing the story instead of playing this game of fucking telephone with an ex-CIA guy. And again, for all the people that seem to jump on this guy's dick, everybody's like, he'll be the first to tell you once CIA, always CIA. And so why is their trust matrix go that way with him? And he'll and again, he wants to be a trustworthy source while casting aspersions on, Spanberger, for example. It's just fucking dumb. Yes, thank you, Anita. I'm good. I think I'll be all right. I think I got 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Staff, Raising Cane, has also
CIA officer who was at the White House this morning talking to his friends, and he says that a decision has been made to attack Iran on Monday or Tuesday. The president yesterday gave the
just for the record, it is Wednesday.
It's 10 days to accept our proposals for an end to their ballistic missile program, an end to.
Can we just stack up Monday or Tuesday with bullshit now that it's Wednesday, even if it takes longer?
Their uranium enrichment program, an end to supporting groups in the Middle East like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. But he's done this before. Well, he'll give you 10 days, he'll give you 2 weeks, and then he'll just attack 2 days into it. He thinks that keeps people off balance.
Well.
Wow, a guy saying a thing about it that he heard from a guy about stuff that he heard while he's on a podcast saying stuff. Amazing. I don't even know how this happens in America.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why Tucker Carlson is meeting with President Trump. We have this on good authority that Tucker is meeting with President Trump and did meet with President Trump today in order
maybe just bring in a care package, of lube from Russia.
Warn him against attacking Iran. Various interests are very much freaking out again about this. Tucker attempting to lobby for Iran at the White House. When will Pam Bondi force Tucker to register with FARA? This is a national security threat.
Sorry, Laura Loomer's a certain interests. She qualifies as certain interests. She's got say over who gets hired and fired in the administration.
Trump, again, meeting with Tucker Carlson at the White House today. Spotted at the White House, Tucker Carlson going in for a meeting with Trump to beg him not to go to war with Iran, something that Tucker's done before. I haven't spoken to Tucker Carlson since I was an intern, Crossfire, my freshman year of college. Even then, I don't think that I said more than hello. I know for a fact that Tucker Carlson leaked this to Jake Sherman. Tucker was told by the White House not to tell anybody that he was coming to the White House today, where he was also been told no pictures. We will see if he disrespects them again by taking a photo. Okay. Sleazeball trader Katarlson leaks that he's at the White House. Laura has it covered.
So Benny's just covering the split in MAGA about this Iran thing. That he's technically on the side of Tucker in this back and forth against Loomer and Levin and others, which is, glorious. It's not going to ultimately affect the outcome at all, but it does show how heavy that split is.
All right.
And there's no decision where Trump can make a decision that won't upset half of them.
Ran yourself, you diseased little man, and go home. Tucker Carlson's brother, Buckley Carlson. Oh boy. To Mark Levin. We polled the favorability ratings of a bunch of media and social media personalities. Only 3 majority positive approvals among Republicans.
A dead guy, Joe fucking Rogan, who's technically not a Republican, but is so gullible and favorable to having them barf their bullshit into his gullet on the regular that he allows them to get away with anything essentially until they leave the room, obviously, in which case, he'll go, I don't know, it seems weird. Everything's Biden's definitely doing something, but Trump, I don't know, this seems weird. This doesn't make sense to me. Maybe because you're stupid. And then of course 3 Tucker Carlson, because again, what's the drop off after Joe Rogan?
Be Charlie Kirk, Joe Rogan, and Tucker Carlson. That doesn't surprise me at all. Only 8% of America First has a very unfavorable view of Tucker. Yikes. So fighting a losing battle here. Replace my
Also, America first. How do you define that? How do you poll just those people? What Republican says they aren't America first, even when they are? Like, who are you just fucking calling people that have that in their bio?
be with Tucker Carlson. Okay.
It's horseshit.
Oh my.
Not to mention you're talking to a dead guy. I've seen this Exorcist about 127 times, and it keeps getting funnier every time I see it.
That's right. All right, let's go ahead and check in and see what is this.
Why are you, I don't give a shit what Buckley Carlson says, you dumb motherfucker.
Dude pops off. Okay. Well, anyway, this comes at the right on the heels of Mike Huckabee saying something insane to Tucker Carlson, which is that he'd be okay with Israel bombing and taking over the entire Middle East. That's what he said. That's crazy. Tucker Carlson, 80% of Americans oppose war with Iran. Ambassador Huckabee, we don't live in a world where polls
free speech. We want him to have that. Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran? I don't know. Do you know? I do. I think it's around. I saw the numbers yesterday. I think it was like 21%. Okay.
Hold on. It's 16 to 27%. Support for the war low. Surveys indicating 1 in 5, about 21-27, favoring an attack on Iran. Partisan division, while opposition spans the political spectrum. Support for military intervention is primarily driven by Republicans, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. While opposition spans the political spectrum, support for the military intervention is primarily driven by Republicans, though even within that group, support is divided, right? But if your group is divided and the only people that are for it are most of your group, that's the interesting part about, like, what's the difference in those, in the like, who wins in the power struggle in the party? Who does Trump pay more attention to? The losers who are against something he wants to do, or the heroes that want to support him in doing something unpopular because the stupid people haven't done what needed to be done?
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction. Because
I thought you just said that
that's
we
direct democracy. No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply
latest
about
poll
it in
number
what
is?
sense?
Yeah.
If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we, quote, care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we see there's a threat.
No, but about Americans' opinions. So you've got 350 million Americans.
Yeah, but they voted for, the people that voted for Trump, I got news for you. Even the ones that said, I didn't vote for this, voted for this shit. Are you fucking dumb? They voted for this. Trump voters voted for anything Trump wants to do. Comer fucking said it last week. Or even, maybe it wasn't even last week. It was like day before yesterday. Let me, hold on. This is going to annoy me. I know I got to go, but shit. Comer, we're going to do whatever the president wants. Yeah, hold on. Whatever the president wants.
But look, I support the president. We're going to do, in my congressional office in Kentucky, I'm going to do whatever the president wants to move his agenda forward.
Yeah.
And I know Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise are trying very hard to get the votes. And I think the president's going to address this tariff situation tonight in his speech, along with many other issues like health care. So,
yeah. So he's whatever the president wants to get his agenda through. And if his agenda includes bombing Iran, Get fucked. Polls don't matter. You voted for a guy who doesn't listen to the polls. If the polls are against him, he disregards them.
They voted in this last election on the basis, in part, of the promise no more wars. Okay, so now we're about to have a war, looks like.
Well, then why didn't they vote for the woman who was working with the guy who got us out of Afghanistan and didn't get us into another war in the interim?
80% of people are against it. In that range, let's say 70%, but nowhere near majority support for this war. And it's not direct democracy, but it is a form of democracy. It's representative democracy.
The ultimate form of democracy in our system, in a republic, because we're not a true democracy, we're a republic.
Exactly, right? It's a mediated democracy.
It'll be an opportunity for Americans to vote if they think that we've made the wrong policy.
Ooh, okay. Sounds like
we're going to have to wait till we vote again to, respond to our president starting a war, just like we did with the last fucking Republican. Again, what's really different besides the noise between Trump and Bush? It's a continuation of the chainification of the fucking administration. Only dumber and louder, I guess.
You're on a war. Last time that Donald Trump went to war with Iran, somebody please explain to Kooky Tucker Carlson. He says, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. This was last summer. Trump ended up bombing Iranians in Midnight Hammer. Seems like that's what they're preparing to do. Believe that. Which side of this are you on? I don't want America to go to war with Iran. It's just a matter of fact. I do not want that to happen.
Wow, way to really put your foot down, dumbass. Well, guess what? You voted for a guy that doesn't give a fuck what you think. And not only is that a point of pride with him, but it is the functioning ideology of MAGA. MAGA is whatever Trump wants. He knows best. He knows ISIS better than the generals. He knows vaccines better than the scientists, right? So at a certain point, I think we overuse on the Democratic side of the aisle our criticism of our leaders because we can, and we exercise that right without any limitation whatsoever. There are no external guardrails, so we think that there shouldn't be any internal guardrails and kind of like pick our battles and understand priorities and establish our values through the priority of problems specifically and the challenges in front of us, and that there's an order of magnitude between, difference between these Republicans and current Democrats, period, end of story. And anybody who tells you it's a coin flip is selling the conflict and making money off of it. They're a fucking barnacle on it. But the Republican side voted for Trump uber alles. So sorry, motherfuckers. Your opinion does not matter. Mine does in the Democratic Party. And I can win or lose in arguments based on the volume of that. But it is attrition in terms of agreement in Trump world. You're on board with everything, or he's not interested. This is the guy who told you if you were interested in the Epstein files to get fucked, he doesn't want your support anymore. You think he gives a shit about what people think about Iran? Unless it would affect his popularity in the short term enough to affect the midterms, which is probably the argument that Tucker Carlson is making, that maggots will get so mad. And what Trump's been told by the people around him, Lindsey Graham, maybe others, is that do it now. And like the bombing last year, they got over it. And now a lot of them didn't. A lot of the Fuentes crowd did not get over the bombing of Iran, and they're not going to. And same thing with Tucker Carlson. They didn't really get over the last one. But man, this is the last straw to do it again. And what they're telling him is, dude, it's fucking February. You can, if you do this now, people will forget about it during the midterms. But if you have to wait and you do it closer to, say April or May, it'll be harder for people to forget during that cycle. And man, the noise you could make, man, this will eat up all the Epstein stuff that, like people still clamoring for more files. The Telegraph's article about there being 6 storage facilities across the country that have Epstein stuff in them. Right? Where's that stuff right now? Was it raided? Was it stolen? Was it emptied? Did somebody come and clear them out? Where's that stuff today? So ultimately, maggots have to reconcile the fact that whatever Trump is going to do or wants to do is up to him, and it's not up to you. Your dissent is unneeded. It's cartoonishly wasted on this fucking clown. And if you want to be able to disagree with your party leadership and actually say stuff, you're going to have to be a Democrat, or you're going to have to leave and become an independent and just bitch about everybody, which is what all these assholes did after Bush 1 or Bush 2 rather. All right, I'm going to go. I got to go prep for a show. Not that it's real prep. I just have to eat sometime in the near future, which I'm pretty sure. All right, I'm going to race it over there as best I can. I should be all right. Hold on. Let's see if I've got. Oh, sorry. Did I miss something? Wait, give me 1 second. Is it up here? Sorry. What was I staff chatting? Did I miss? Jump to current thing. Sorry. Preset to rate Brian to 5:30. Okay, good. Sorry. Excellent. Got it. Anything else? Okay. We're all right? Or do we get a bunch? We got spammed by Germans? The Germans were here? We have this one woman who shows up regularly. It happens. Sorry. So I got the people in whatever the Facebookers who try to sell, witch doctor cures. That's my beat as far as modding. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go so you can jump over to Boston Brian. I've blathered on long enough, God damn it, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll be back home tomorrow, so take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And for those of you that are watching Flappers tonight, I will see you at around 7:30.